Glad to see you all here. Thank you for coming and spending some time with my work and the Montross Art Center and everyone else's work as well. I grew up in Virginia, near Warrenton in Northern Virginia on a farm, and spent my childhood there, and later after high school spent 6 months in the rainforest in Costa Rica, and then came back and went to art school at VCU, where I spent 2 years in the sculpture department, and then moved to Pittsburgh, which was sort of steel mecca. And because I didn't mention, I caught the steel bug, the intrigue around metalwork early on as a kid. And so in my senior year of high school, I used to bend up coat hangers into mobiles, and I sort of eagerly awaited the time when I was afforded the chance to work with the stuff. So anyway, 15 years in Pittsburgh, and built sculpture in abandoned buildings with friends, large scale sculpture in abandoned buildings, and hosted events and did different things. Then moved back to the Northern Neck and opened my own little shop, focused primarily on metalwork. And so the last 15 years or so, I've done a lot of commission work and functional items, railings and gates and things, but mostly commissioned sculpture. And lately I've decided that I want to distinguish neatly between the business and the art. And you know, Andy Warhol said, you know, great business is great art. And I think he's right. But on the other hand, I also have this other tug that says, art is service. Art is service. And art is, you know, about deeper yearnings and deeper longings and, you know, sometimes unrequited kind of bigger, fully formed matters of the heart. So, you know, the business will be a set of products, and that will hopefully support my art habit, and I'll be able to continue to do this sort of thing because I have other interests other than just metalwork, you know, history and the natural world, and as I'm sure a lot of you do too. So anyway, I don't know what else to say, but if there's anyone that has a question, please ask. And
maybe you could tell us a little bit about each of your.
Well, I mean, let me say, this is all a little bit of a departure for me from the last 15 years. I've done a lot of animals and natural forms and sort of gestural. I love ironwork, you know, European ironwork in 16th, 17th century. For the fluidity and the very unusual vocabulary of features, leaf forms, and I know most people think it's a decorative art. To me it's not. To me it is a high art, and so this is what did I title this again? I'm drawing a blank.
We did have a tagline this morning.
It's about aspirations. It's about yearnings and longings, and also destinies is what I titled it. And you know, this sort of difficult thing to tease out about having a sense of purpose and what the cost of that is and how it can be justified in many ways, and some the ends and the means, and the difficulty of understanding how certain things are justified and others are not. So I don't know. It's a complicated kind of quandary. But I think it kind of ascends and it can also descend. And so it's really ultimately about aspects of the mind and how we modulate sort of mood and thought and experience. It's a little bit of a companion piece to the one out front, the seated blue spherical figure. I like to think that it means a lot of things, and to me, of this body of work, it's a set of questions that any of us can ask ourselves. So it's kind of my favorite. I spent a year producing a lot of work, and this is kind of the one that I feel like, well, I think I could keep working on that, even though it's so sort of singular and graphic. So yeah, as I said, unlike most of what I've done the last 15 years. And this is painted on canvas. I thought I would do a floor cloth, which is a colonial American form. Well, it originated in France in the 1500s, and they were painted on old sails, and they were used to brighten an otherwise fairly dreary sort of domestic scene. My brother is a sailmaker, and he also makes traditional sails, modern sails, traditional sails. So I'm interested in all that because of him. And the geometry and the background is really more of the ancient world. It's really more of the ancient world. And because the geometric patterns of the colonial America were simpler. So it kind of bridges the ancient world in colonial America and the experience we have here today with our history, and all the ties to the Mediterranean, the ancient world of the Mediterranean. So all of that stuff, and colonization, and the beauty and the force and the ugliness, all of it. So it's ours to consider. And then the hearts, the mosaic on top over there are mosaics, and they're made from cork. I discovered years ago meat slicer in wine corks it cut real nice, and I realized that when I came across a lot of corks. So anyway, there were
They just happened to be there.
yeah. Well, everybody's into knives. Everybody's into, like, if you do metalwork, they're like, well, do you make knives? No, but I got a meat slicer. So anyway, in the fabric dye and the cork, I just thought the colors were really sweet and interesting. So I spent an awful lot of time cutting each one of those little tesserae and fitting them together. And I like the idea that it's the sort of the rainbow. It's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and kind of graphic, and awakening the heart, I think, is a practice that I'm invested in. Not one that I know real well, but one that I think is important to me. I don't know if I'm just kind of a traumatized person, but you know, we all kind of are. But anyway, the next one down, I did a series which the show is named after: Method, Madness, Sanity, Desire. It's kind of a sequence. It's also sort of, I don't know, just kind of a, you know, an overview of the human experience, and playing with rust, you know. I mean, I work with metal, I see rust all the time, and it's just wonderful. And to make it into art is kind of logical. Play with all those colors and the depth of all that. So, and there's a geometry embedded in all of that, which is to do with order and humanity. Humanity's our order, and you know, and the one below it relates in that way with the geometries, which is laser cut. So a series I will continue to explore. So, oh, and then this guy.
So then the lower one is cut from one sheet?
One sheet, laser, like a computer controlled
Gotcha.
laser. The sculpture here is deities, and I actually thought a lot of this work would be that exploration, but it was such a difficult piece over that period of that year working on all this stuff. I couldn't figure out an easy way forward with that. So it's really to do with, well, I mean, caste, nobility, fluidity, and again, sort of mediating the mind and the body, and the challenges that we have internally or we experience from the world around us. So it's sort of trying to sort of deal with those things gracefully, and how that might be represented. And maybe because I don't do that very well all the time, it was a very difficult piece. I thought I would do a whole series of those. In fact, I have components made for a series, but I just didn't understand what I was doing. So I think I need to, step back and figure out what I'm doing, and then maybe I can do the next iteration. So anyway, that's kind of it. And and I'll be getting my Wycomico Forge Garden Works website and product line together. So hopefully I can, make really nice things for people's gardens and homes and pay for art. So that's what I'm hoping. So anyway.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Buddha outside? I've already gotten a lot of questions about it, especially about the wording.
Yeah. I did a meditation retreat. I do these regularly. COVID kind of interrupted it, but Thich Nhat Hanh was a Vietnamese Buddhist who came both to France and the US in the 60s. He was actually very politically active as a peace activist. Anyway, I went to a meditation retreat. One of his slogans is beginninglessness, endlessness. as a point of contemplation or a practice, and it's just sort of it just kind of removes the bookends from our experience of time. And solidity is another practice that, when you can embody beginninglessness and endlessness to understand solidity, you can maintain beginninglessness and endlessness. So sort of protecting your peace, which is very difficult. And then the other piece out front is just kind of architectural models of the ancient world, sort of general forms. The obelisk is specific, but the others are general forms that sort of, I don't know. I'm just fascinated by all of what happened in the ancient world. I know so very little about it all, but I was in Italy a few years ago and saw some Greek bronzes, and I was gobsmacked. 2,200-year-old figurative bronzes. You've not seen figurative sculpture until you've seen one of those things. It's just amazing. And I think they welded them. And welding evidently was invented in 1900. So I don't know. I don't know how they did it. But anyway, so that's kind of it. That's kind of the overview. Any questions?
I do have a question. The middle painting is with the rust. It's very intriguing, and you talked about the geometrics, which to me represents a level of control and order. But then it's like there's a natural, which to me represents a nature which we can't control at all. And then you've got the figures in the back, which represents humanity, we all know, off the charts.
Yeah.
And it all seems to collide.
Yes. It harmonizes. And it harmonizes.
Okay.
Because, I don't know, I'm coming around with order and structure and
I
law.
struggle with order, so it's sort of like I see the order, but I also, my mind picks up on the chaos that's intruding.
Well, there is that. It's a view. It's a view.
Okay.
It works pretty well.
Okay.
Yes, the drama is severe, and I don't know. I stopped looking at the news 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You too? Yeah, it all works pretty well. It is not easy, especially when there are hundreds of millions of people screaming about what needs to happen. Can you imagine?
Right.
So I just don't. So yeah. I mean, you could think of the geometry as man-made structure, but this is all
Right.
that.
No, I just wondered because, to me it does with there's looks to be a natural, either, a tree
It's
branch,
a tree branch.
coming in to create a balance with, a structured order that has to exist for us to survive. And then our crazy minds that won't let us stop.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I just wanted to make sure. I was just checking.
I mean, the frame is pretty crisp, and the branch is a way of sort of pushing that edge a little bit. It overhangs a little bit.
Yes. Okay.
And that is probably what you're talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know, the high drama with the politics and all the rest of it, it's kind of, it seems counterproductive to actualizing what it is we really believe, or what we think we really believe. So I think that my meditation practice is really closer to.
I do sense a sense, there is an underlying sense of peace in the background. The lighter rust, you have a lighter sense of rust.
Yeah. I like that the figures are calm, you know,
Relaxed.
because I don't know how that happened, but it did, and because it's a challenging whole set of conditions, so I don't know if that's a good explanation or not.
No, it's
but-
great, no, thank you, no, because it intrigued me when I saw it, and it's like, so, I appreciate your discussion.
All right, good. All right, I don't want to bore you guys. Any more questions?
What are you inspired by?
Well,
Like, and if there's like any one particular thing that inspires you, how do you implement that into your work? If you do.
oh yeah, I mean, everything, you know, nature. My dad was a political scientist. My mother was an artist. Everything interests me. How well I can deal with everything is another question. But doing the best I can with that is what's interesting. That is it. And so, I mean, you know, I live in rural Virginia. It's pretty quiet. There isn't a whole lot of drama. So, you know, nature, history, you know, all of my technical interests. I don't know, what is really going on, and you know, not just of the moment, but sort of what keeps recurring as the human experience, and what are the questions that we've been trying to figure out all along, that sort of stuff, I guess.
Understood.
Yeah. It's pretty vague, I guess you could say, but I mean, I don't know. I'm going to Pittsburgh here soon to build one of these big pieces that's been in storage with friends where I used to do all that sort of thing. So they'll have all kinds of ideas that I don't know about because I've been living here for 15 years. I don't know what that's going to be like.
So you think like after that, like you'll come back and be able to create like your next great piece based off of that experience?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, thank you for your attention. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.